Dave Spalding, Handgun Combatives. I'm here in Hamilton, Ohio with my co-instructor and very good friend, Brian Bucky Buchanan. Brian, we were talking in another video about all the gun forum debates and stuff like that. And another one of those things I see debated a lot is reloading. There's actually some people on those forums that'll say, why even practice reloading because it seldom happens. And you know what? That's true. But you know what? When you need to reload in a gunfight, you need it real bad. What have you seen?
I've heard some of the same ideas that they've said hardly ever going to happen. The high capacity double stack magazines we have nowadays, highly unlikely. However, police officers being involved in shootings in the first place, probably highly unlikely. So does that mean we should never practice shooting? Same exact verbiage. So we say the same thing. Look, if it should happen, you need to be able to do it as quickly, efficiently, and without tying yourself up with a lot of unnecessary movements to get that done. It's the fuel tank for the gun. Fill it back up when you can, as best you can, and don't use anything that's going to slow you down or try to get too fancy, because that's all we're trying to do is refill that tank.
Right, absolutely. You know, the old, when I was with the HK Training Division, we used to have the saying, load when you want to, not when you have to.
Sure, makes sense.
And I still find that to be relevant. But there are people, and they can make a legitimate argument that say that the only time you're ever going to reload is when your gun is empty.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that we just want to roll over and say, yep, you're only going to reload when it's empty, because I'll give you an example. Boom, 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 you fire a whole bunch of rounds. Now, do you continue to shoot until the gun's slide lock open, or do you reload right then? Because now I got 16 rounds, and I have no idea how many are on the ground.
Sure.
That said, I also realize you can't count rounds in a gunfight and may very well go to slide lock. But also, if the only way you ever trade to reload is to go to slide lock, and then in your fight, the gun doesn't lock, then you end up going tap rack. Now you're spending more time than ever before getting the gun loaded. So how do you address this?
Well, pretty much the same exact way that you do, with common sense. Common sense says that, hey, and Murphy's Law always tells us, and you say this all the time, Murphy was a cop. Bad things happen to good people, and being in a gunfight is a bad thing.
Right.
You don't want anything else other than that gunfight happening. So how about this? How about you've practiced, spent some time not under duress, being able to work, pick out, figure out where your magazine is, make that exchange, especially when you want it. Not when something that you couldn't predict happened. Now the gun is in a condition that, oh, this is the only time I ever do this. How about I do this when I know it's a good time to do that? Obviously, the gun can be locked open, or there can be in battery, slide forward. If we're going to do that, how about being able to do it well both ways? Right. So that, hey, if it's in slide lock, great, I know it's probably empty, but we can also go into slide lock accidentally when the gun is not empty. And
Buddy, I'm going to tell you what, you just gave us the perfect intro to taking a look at the various reloads. So let's do that right now. Okay, let's take a look at what I just basically call a speed load. And this is the simplest way to reload your gun. You're dumping a magazine, you're inserting a magazine. It can't get much simpler, it can't get much faster. I'm a big advocate in the magazine comes up next to the gun before you eject it, because you never give up a known for an unknown.
Sure.
So why would you dump a magazine until you know you've got a spare? What if you're in a foot chase in law enforcement, or maybe an armed citizen, you got knocked on your butt and it fell out of the pouch, or maybe you've got to dig it out of a pocket.
Sure.
When I worked undercover, I carried it down in a little ankle, a neoprene ankle pocket. So you definitely want to get that spare magazine out before you start, dumping the one you got.
Nobody's going to be able to give you a timeout to be able to reach for that.
No, sir. So let's take a look at what a speed load looks like, just typical like this. Now, I'm not going to try to go blazingly fast. I'm just going to try to be as efficient as I can and get it done. Now, that's pretty fast, probably under a second and a half, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah, but there are people out there that advocate that the only way you'll ever know to reload is the slide lock's open. So let's take a look at that. Now, the fastest way to do this, Brian, is to use the shooting hand thumb to drop the slide. So let's take a look at that one. Pretty darn quick. The problem is, with that, some people advocate that you don't have the digital dexterity to do that, but you know what? I got to kind of throw a bullshit flag on that one.
I too.
Because if you can use your thumb to push the magazine release button, or your thumb to hit the bolt release on your AR-15, I think you can lift it up and go like that. But the problem that I see with that particular technique is, what if you get the timing off a little bit?
Sure, we've all seen those guns that may be a little looser than others.
Uh-huh.
That you go to bash that magazine and you think you're cool, you're faster and magic and all ninja-fied. That, wow, that slide went forward for me. It might have went forward because of you jostling the gun. It went forward before the magazine fully made it in there to pick up a round.
Or you drop that slide before the magazine was fully seated.
Absolutely.
And now you've got an empty gun and you don't know it till it goes click.
Loudest sound in the world.
Yeah, so something that you could advocate is, as the magazine goes in and it clicks, you roll the support side thumb up and hit the button.
Because timing-wise, that hand being there then, you know that it is seated. You know now it's time to do that versus a happy guess.
Brother, I cannot disagree with you. I mean, I can't agree with you more. So let's take a look and see what that looks like compared to just dropping with my shooting hand. I think you're going to see it doesn't look that much different.
I think so too.
Boom. And all I did is I inserted the magazine, I rolled up, boom, dropped it down.
Yeah.
If you've got a slide lock that's got enough of a ledge that you can get a thumb on it, then you can get a support thumb on it.
Like you've said many times, hey, John Browning had it right. Look at the 1911s.
Yeah, I mean the 1911s, the third generation Smith & Wessons, some of the older guns that had large slide releases in the middle of the gun.
Sure.
I think it was the European gunfighters that put it underneath the shooting thumb. But you know what? I have to tell you, especially in the competition crowd, they've adopted that, being able to use the shooting hand thumb. So you know what? Either one can work. It's totally up to you. But let's say you adhere to that whole thing where you can't use the thumb. You got to use the hand. Well, the way I see this, it's pretty much like doing malfunctions. You can turn the gun into your hand, or you can come up and you can saddle grip. Do you remember when they used to teach the power stroke, where you would
Slap your shoulder, sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, think about that. You're only bringing the slide back about this far, but you're hitting yourself in the chest. Look how far apart my hands are to do that.
But it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks great. Really, all you need to do is pull the slide back until it won't travel anymore. Then you know you got full spring retraction.
That's how the gun was designed. It didn't say that, hey, you need to have a hand pulling completely back and hitting yourself to make the gun fully function.
Well, what I'd like you to do is, why don't you show the viewers both turning it into your hand and coming up over saddle gripping and see what that looks like, okay?
All right, here we go.
Okay, Bucky, what I want you to demonstrate for him now is kind of that split the difference technique. Instead of you reaching over top, when the slide locks open, you just kind of turn the gun in your hand and let the slide go. Show them what that looks like.
Sure, here we go.
Now, what I like about that is it kind of splits the difference, and I think it's a little bit faster. Is it so much faster that it's like truly superior to coming over top? I'm not convinced of that. Let me have the gun. I want to show you another technique that I like a little bit better than that. I'm going to put this in here, pick up a magazine. What I'm going to kind of do is I'm going to kind of take a technique that's going to kind of incorporate both of those.
Okay.
And what I'm talking about is I'm going to insert it, but instead of coming all the way up and pulling back on it or turning the gun in my hand, I'm going to come up and I'm going to use both a saddle grip and turn it. For those people that kind of like coming up here and doing this, why don't we just do that and let it go and see what that looks like. So let's take a look at what this is. I think that could work too.
It's a good hybrid.
Yeah, it kind of splits the difference. You know, you turn the gun, kind of take a little of the time out of it, and get the job done. So, you know, it's like anything else. There are multiple ways to get the job done. But once again, what we do here at Handgun Combatives is we look for the simplest, easiest, and oftentimes the fastest way to get it done. So, you know, if it's up to me, I'm going to insert it. I'm going to use my shooting hand thumb to drop that slide because I'm used to that. But you know what? Coming up here doing that, great. Hey, if you don't like it, you know, you can use one of the other ones because you know what? We teach them all.
Absolutely. We say things all the time that it's situationally dependent. Some of these techniques, if you're crunched down behind someplace, may not work for you. Vast majority of the time they will because we try to keep them simple.
Okay. All right. Listen, thanks for tuning in, and we're going to try to get some more of these videos to you when we can.